I want you to imagine just for a second standing at an elevation of over 3,000 meters.
Oh, wow. That is high.
Right. You're in the Trans-Himalayan region of Ladakh. It is this cold, arid desert, basically at the very top of the world.
It's incredibly harsh.
Exactly. The winter temperatures there, they routinely plummet below minus 40 degrees Celsius.
Minus 40, that's bone-chilling.
It really is. And then in the summer, the sun beats down with this scorching intensity. You've got brutal ultraviolet radiation. The humidity is practically non-existent. Vegetation is super sparse.
Yeah, it's just a really rugged, unforgiving expanse of steep, jagged rock.
Exactly. It's a landscape that, well, it actively resists life.
It really does. Just standing there doing absolutely nothing, your body is essentially under attack from the environment.
Yeah, and the most insidious part of that attack is something you can't even see. It's the air itself.
Ah, right, the hypoxia.
Exactly.
Right.
At that altitude, you are dealing with hypobaric hypoxia.
Right, so hypoxia meaning low oxygen, and hypobaric referring to the low atmospheric pressure.
Which means the air is just thin.
Yeah, exactly. Because the pressure is so low, the physical air molecules are spread much further apart.
Right.
So with every single breath you take, you are pulling in only about 60 to 70% of the oxygen you would be getting at sea level.
Wow. Only 60%.
Yeah. So your lungs have to work exponentially harder just to maintain, a baseline level of organ function. It is a massive physiological hurdle for any living creature.
So to understand how any mammal actually survives this, we are doing a deep dive today into some fascinating new field data on a specific indigenous animal.
The Zanskar pony.
The Zanskar pony. We're looking at a study from the Defense Life Science Journal titled Evaluation of Physiological Parameters in Response to Endurance Exercise of Zanskar Ponies Adapted to High Altitude of Ladakh Region.
That's quite a title.
It is, yeah. But basically, researchers track their physiological limits to see how monitoring their biology could revolutionize military logistics.
Right, and help save an endangered breed while they're at it.
Exactly. It's a look at the absolute limits of biological endurance when the atmosphere itself is your biggest obstacle.
It really is the ultimate biological speed test.
So glad you're joining us for this one, because to understand the severity of this test, we have to look closely at why this specific test subject was chosen.
Right, the pony itself.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if the military or, local communities need to move 60 kilos of heavy gear up a steep Himalayan mountain.
Which is a lot of gear.
Yeah. My first thought is machines. We have fleets of modern, all-terrain, off-road vehicles, so why rely on a medium-sized indigenous pony?
Well, that logical assumption hits a wall when you meet the reality of the Himalayan terrain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Vehicles, no matter how advanced they are, they simply cannot navigate those narrow, steep, crumbling mountain trails.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
Right. The physics of a rigid axle and rubber tires just fail on paths that frequently change shape. You've got rock falls, you've got ice. There are places where machines simply cannot go.
So you need legs.
You need legs.
But then why not bigger legs?
What do you mean?
Like, if you need biological horsepower, bring in massive muscular draft horses from the plains, something built for heavy lifting.
Yeah, that's a common thought. But bringing a massive horse up from sea level to 3,000 meters creates a logistical nightmare.
Really? How so?
Well, it defeats the whole purpose of having a pack animal. Large horses from the plains require long periods of acclimatization.
Oh, because of the oxygen?
Exactly. Without it, they suffer from severe altitude sickness, pulmonary edema, heart failure, just like humans do.
Wow. I hadn't thought about horses getting altitude sickness.
Oh, they definitely do.
Yeah.
And furthermore, a massive body requires massive amounts of calories.
Right.
So they need specialized feed, like imported oats, which then has to be, transported up the mountain.
Ah, so you end up dedicating most of your logistics just to feeding the animal that is supposed to be carrying your supply.
Exactly. It's totally counterproductive. But the Zanskar pony bypasses all of those issues.
Because it's from there.
Right. It's practically purpose-built by evolution for this exact environment. I mean, they only stand about 120 to 140 centimeters tall.
Okay, so they're pretty compact.
Very compact. And that medium stature gives them a lower center of gravity.
Which is probably great for balance.
It's non-negotiable for sure-footedness on those narrow ledges overlooking steep drops. Plus, they possess incredibly strong musculature and fine but dense coats to handle the extreme temperature swings.
And didn't the study mention they rarely get sick?
Yes, A remarkable natural disease resistance, and most importantly, their digestive systems are adapted to survive on the very limited, tough, local fodder found in the region.
So no imported oats required.
None at all.
That's incredible. These ponies really are the vital lifelines of this region. They routinely carry 50 to 60 kilograms of food, medicines, ammunition, all these essential supplies.
Right, to remote villages and military outposts that are entirely cut off from the rest of the world.
They're doing the heavy lifting where no machine can operate.
Yeah. So understanding their endurance isn't just an academic curiosity. It is a literal matter of survival for those isolated communities.
And a massive strategic necessity for military logistics.
Exactly.
But, okay, you mentioned their bodies are highly efficient. Every biological system has its limits, though.
Sure.
How does a 130-centimeter pony carry 60 kilos up a mountain on 30% less oxygen without its internal engine completely breaking down?
Well, that efficiency comes down to centuries of evolutionary pressure. Long-term exposure to hypobaric hypoxia actually forces physiological adaptations at a cellular level.
Wow, cellular level. Like what?
Over generations, these ponies have developed enlarged lungs and larger hearts relative to their overall body size.
Oh, so they literally have bigger engines.
Basically, it allows for greater intake and circulation, and they also maintain a higher concentration of red blood cells.
It's like adding more cargo ships to the bloodstream to transport whatever scarce oxygen they can scavenge from the lungs.
I love that analogy, yes. And that extra cargo capacity pairs perfectly with how their muscles optimize energy utilization.
Right, the study talked about glycogen, didn't it?
It did. Zanskar ponies are incredibly adept at storing intramuscular glycogen. They pack away high-density fuel directly inside the muscle tissues for when it's needed most.
That's super efficient.
It is. And crucially, their cells possess a higher density of mitochondria. The powerhouses of the cell, the structures responsible for converting that glycogen into usable energy.
Oh, okay.
Even when the oxygen supply is weak, these mitochondria process the fuel with remarkable efficiency.
I always find it helpful to translate this biological machinery into vehicle mechanics.
Oh yeah, let's hear it.
Well, if we define endurance in this context, it's the body's ability to sustain prolonged physical activity while keeping the cardiovascular, respiratory, and metabolic systems running smoothly.
Right, without a catastrophic failure.
Exactly. So it is exactly like the fuel efficiency of a highly tuned engine. You wouldn't take a heavy, gas-guzzling supercar on a 1,000-mile trek through a desert with no gas stations.
No, you definitely wouldn't.
You want a lightweight, highly efficient engine that can travel vast distances while consuming the absolute minimum amount of fuel.
Right.
So the Zanskar Pony is essentially the ultimate high-altitude, fuel-efficient off-roader.
What's fascinating here is that studying this engine efficiency has stakes far beyond just military logistics.
How so?
It directly impacts the conservation of the breed itself.
Yeah.
The population of the Zanskar pony has been in steep decline.
Yeah, I read that. The 2012 census showed only about 9,000 of them left.
It's tragic. But by scientifically measuring and identifying which specific ponies have the absolute best endurance, breeders can select those genetic lines.
Oh, to strengthen the whole population.
Exactly, ensuring the breed actually survives.
But, okay, let's talk about the study itself. Doesn't testing them outside on a rocky trail introduce way too many variables?
What do you mean?
I have to admit, when I first started reading this deep dive, I pictured scientists putting a horse on a giant treadmill in a climate-controlled university lab, to get perfect isolated data. Why didn't they do that?
I see. Well, a treadmill study wouldn't give you the data you actually need for this specific problem.
Why not?
Because to understand real endurance in this environment, you have to test them against the actual environmental friction they face daily.
Right, the rocks, the cold.
Exactly. The researchers went directly to the Zanskar ponies breeding unit of the Remount Veterinary Services in Partapur, Ladakh.
Which is sitting at an elevation of 3,292 meters.
Real altitude. And they evaluated 12 healthy trained ponies.
Right. 5 males, 7 females. They were mostly around 3 years old, carefully selected to have similar body conditions so the baseline data would be consistent.
Yes. And the exercise regimen was specifically designed to mirror their routine work.
Okay, so what did they make them do?
5 ponies were loaded with 60 kilograms of dead weight. 6 ponies carried a rider weighing about 70 kilograms.
Oh, so heavy loads.
Very heavy. And 1 pony, acting as the control, walked the route without any load. They traveled a 5-kilometer track across hilly terrain with a slight uphill slope, taking roughly 50 minutes.
Okay, I see your point. A treadmill can't replicate the uneven footing, the micro changes in elevation, the direct UV exposure.
Or the mental stress of navigating a crumbling trail.
Right. So by testing them under natural, rugged conditions, the researchers captured authentic data reflecting the actual biological cost of their daily lives.
Precisely. And to measure that biological cost, researchers tracked multiple interconnected physiological parameters at 3 distinct stages.
Okay, T0, T1, and T2. Right.
Right. T0 is pre-exercise, T1 is immediately post-exercise, and T2 is after a 2-hour recovery period.
Got it.
They monitored respiratory rate, rectal temperature, arterial oxygen saturation, and importantly, both pulse rate and heart rate.
No, wait. I always thought pulse and heart rate were like the exact same thing, but the researchers went out of their way to measure both.
Yeah, they measured different aspects of the cardiovascular system.
If we go back to our vehicle analogy, listening to the chest with a stethoscope to get the heart rate is like measuring the RPMs of the engine.
Exactly. That's the engine working.
Right. But measuring the pulse, which they did by physically feeling the coccygeal artery at the base of the pony's tail, is like checking if that fuel is actually making it all the way through the fuel lines to the extremities.
That is a perfect way to look at it. Both metrics naturally increase during exercise because the active muscle tissues are screaming for a faster delivery of oxygen and nutrients.
Right. The heart has to pump faster.
And that physical wave of blood has to reach the furthest points of the body.
Okay, so the numbers showed a really clear physiological journey. At rest, T0, the ponies had a heart rate of about 48 beats per minute.
Right.
But immediately after that 5-kilometer mountain trek with the heavy loads, it jumped significantly to 75 beats per minute.
Yeah, and that jump is the anticipated cardiovascular demand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's required to push 60 extra kilos uphill in thin air.
Totally.
But the really impressive part of the data is the recovery phase.
T-
Right. After that 2-hour rest period, their heart rate dropped all the way back down to 49.6 beats per minute.
Oh, wow. Almost perfectly returning to their baseline.
Exactly.
And their respiratory rate and body temperature also rose significantly during the exercise, right?
Yes. The temperature increase is just a functional mechanism to dissipate all that internal metabolic heat to the skin so the animal doesn't overheat.
That makes sense. But speaking of the baseline, the researchers made a compelling comparison regarding those resting numbers.
It did. So the Zanskar pony has a resting heart rate of 48 beats per minute, like you said.
Yeah.
But exotic thoroughbred horses, the kind bred for explosive racing at sea level, they have a resting heart rate around 37 beats per minute.
Wait, 37. Isn't a lower resting heart rate universally a sign of better cardiovascular fitness? Why would a highly adapted mountain pony have a higher resting heart rate than a sea-level racehorse?
Well, the hypoxia completely alters the rules of what constitutes a healthy baseline. Yeah. Even while standing completely still, the Zanskar pony's heart has to beat slightly faster just to circulate enough of that thin oxygen to keep the brain and vital organs functioning.
Wow, so the engine is always idling a little higher.
Exactly. And the study also noted the Zanskar pony has a slightly lower resting body temperature than a thoroughbred.
It's a profound demonstration of deep genetic differences shaped by their specific environment.
Truly. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm right.
Because if you just looked at the heart rate jumping to 75, then recovering beautifully back to 49, you'd think they are the perfect machine.
Right. They do the grueling work, take a 2-hour break, and they are good as new.
Exactly. But that impressive heart rate recovery is actually a bit of a biological smokescreen.
A smokescreen.
Yeah. There was one metric that did not recover at all, and it exposes the invisible toll of that environment.
Okay, this specific finding is the crux of the entire study, isn't it?
It is. It's the arterial oxygen saturation.
Often referred to as SO2.
Right. It measures the percentage of hemoglobin in the blood that is fully loaded with oxygen molecules.
And the researchers tracked this using a pulse oximeter clipped onto the pony's ear tip, right?
Yeah, just a little clip. So, at rest, before the exercise began, the pony's oxygen saturation was around 88.5%.
Which is low by sea level standards. I mean, in a healthy mammal at sea level, you want that number between 95 and 100%.
Yes, but 88.5 is their adapted baseline for this extreme altitude.
Okay.
But after the 5-kilometer trek, immediately post-exercise, that oxygen saturation plummeted to 64%.
Wow. 64%. That is a massive drop.
It is, but it's somewhat expected during heavy exertion. The real shock in the data comes during the recovery phase.
After the 2 hours.
Right. After 2 hours of resting, when their heart rate had fully normalized, their oxygen saturation dropped even further.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it went down to 54.4%.
Wait, if the physical labor is over and their heart rate is back to an idle, their oxygen should be replenishing, shouldn't it?
You would think so.
If it's dropping all the way to 54%, that implies their internal systems are still desperately burning through oxygen while they're standing completely still.
Exactly. They are experiencing a severe oxygen debt.
An oxygen debt.
Yeah. During the physical exertion, the muscles burn through the available oxygen so rapidly that the respiratory system simply cannot supply enough to keep up.
Okay.
So to maintain the energy output, the cells shift into anaerobic metabolism, which doesn't require oxygen.
But doesn't that produce a massive buildup of lactic acid?
Yes. Lactic acid builds up and it causes micro tears in the muscle fibers.
Oh, wow. So the body essentially takes out a high-interest loan of energy just to get up the mountain.
That is a perfect way to put it. And that loan comes due the moment they stop moving.
Ah.
When the pony rests, the heart rate slows down, meaning the physical delivery of blood is reduced. However, the muscles and organs are now undertaking a massive cellular repair operation.
Oh, because of all the lactic acid and microtape.
Right. They need enormous amounts of oxygen to clear out that lactic acid, repair the tissue damage, and replenish those glycogen stores.
So the cellular demand for oxygen remains incredibly high.
But the supply in the high-altitude air remains critically low.
Oh, wow. The tissues are literally starving for oxygen. They're pulling every single molecule they can out of the slow-moving blood, which drags the overall arterial saturation down to that dangerous 54%.
Exactly. It proves mathematically that despite their incredible genetic adaptations, a 2-hour rest period is entirely insufficient for these animals to truly recover from heavy work under hypobaric hypoxia.
That is wild.
To an outside observer, the animal looks completely calm. The cardiovascular system appears fully recovered, but at a microscopic cellular level, they are still suffocating.
That is wow. So what does this all mean for the people managing these animals?
Well, by understanding this specific mechanism, breeders and military planners have a highly accurate tool.
Oh, I see. They don't have to just guess which pony is the strongest based on muscle tone or how quickly they catch their breath.
Right. They can use blood oxygen metrics as definitive biomarkers.
That makes total sense.
We connect this to the bigger picture, identifying the animals that experience the least severe drop in oxygen saturation allows breeders to pinpoint superior endurance capacity.
And those specific animals become the foundation for future breeding programs.
Exactly. You ensure that the genes responsible for the best oxygen management are passed on. It creates a more resilient population for the military, for the locals, and for the survival of the breed itself.
It really paints the Zanskar pony as a marvel of evolutionary engineering. I mean, they are a living, breathing, all-terrain vehicle operating in one of the harshest, most unforgiving environments on Earth.
Absolutely.
And it's a great reminder for you listening right now, whether you are an elite human athlete recovering from a marathon or a Himalayan pony carrying a 60-kilo pack up a mountain, true physiological recovery is deeply complex.
It really is.
It is so much more than just waiting for your heart rate to slow down. Your tissues and cells operate on their own unseen timeline, repairing damage long after the actual work is done.
And this raises an important question regarding the genetics of these animals.
Oh, yeah.
The study references specific hypoxic pathway traits unique to the Zanskar pony. They possess biological mechanisms for mitigating cellular damage from low oxygen that modern science is only just beginning to map out.
Wow. So if the Zanskar pony population continues to decline, if they actually slip into extinction, we aren't just losing a reliable pack animal.
No.
We are permanently losing a biological blueprint for surviving on limited oxygen.
Exactly, which leads you to wonder, what other invaluable medical or survival secrets might be locked away in the DNA of the world's most endangered, highly adapted regional species?
That is a great point.
There are millions of years of evolutionary problem-solving coded into these animals, secrets just waiting to be lost forever before we even realize they exist.
It's a haunting thought to leave you with, especially when you picture that 130-centimeter pony standing on a jagged rock at 3,000 meters, breathing in air that would leave most of us gasping, and just quietly surviving the impossible.